It's a short but misty road that winds down through Lebanon from Syria. Just an hour away across the border, a civil war is raging. But here on Mount Lebanon, an old hill resort offers security and calm for a group of Syrians from many backgrounds who've gathered to talk about ending the conflict. We can only show a few of them, because some think their discussions are too sensitive to be filmed. But there are activists here from government and rebel-held areas, from Syria's various religious sects, many opposition supporters, and a few government loyalists. They haven't been brought together by outside powers, as diplomats are trying to do at Geneva. They've organised this meeting themselves. Above all, what they want is a Syrian solution to a Syrian crisis.
We don't need any help. We go in this revolution at 50 March 2011 alone, and we will continue alone, and we will get our freedom and and build our democratic state alone. We don't need any help from anybody. Just we have to stop the war now and to build a new state.
They're discussing many scenarios, but they're agreed that Syrians shouldn't become pawns in other countries' games. Extraordinarily, when Syria appears to have descended into a vortex of death and destruction, with outside powers competing to arm opposite sides, activists like this believe there's still enough political space within their country for a homegrown solution, for Syrians to persuade one another to stop fighting. Khaled Harbash was a law student until the war forced him to abandon his studies. He was somewhere in the crowd in this anti-government demonstration in the spring of 2011, when Syrians like him still hoped for a peaceful revolution. But later, instead of taking up arms as some of his friends did, he began organising workshops to bring citizens together. One, a month ago, included a fighter from the Shabiha, the pro-Assad militia blamed for many atrocities.
He came to the workshop. He just listen and be active in this workshop. And at second day, he changed his mind. And there's many exercise in this workshop. It's changed. He's changed in it completely. But after the workshop, he just say that I will throw my weapon. I don't want my weapon anymore. Yeah, I sort away.
The war won't be stopped by a few individual changes of heart, but grassroots activists have brokered local ceasefires, and above all, they're trying to keep institutions running amid the chaos and to prevent society breaking up. So they're mixed schools, so all boys and girls together, but social activists run big risks. This young graduate from Aleppo daren't show her face on television. She moves back and forth from her home in a government-held area to rebel territory, braving a sniper's alley where people are shot dead almost every day. On the other side, she's helped open schools for children who've had no education since the fighting began, schools that must be protected against government bombardment.
We choose buildings away from the front line, surrounded by higher buildings that shells can't reach. We don't use existing school buildings. We find other buildings and put school desks in the basement. We block the roads leading to them and sandbag the windows.
1,000 children study at the new schools, some as young as these, others old enough to join militias.
There are many kids of 16, 17 and 18 who are whipped up with violent ideas and given weapons. Our schools attract children who would otherwise lose part of their childhood.
When the revolution started, women played a big role. For example, we found food and shelter for internal refugees, and we helped protect people's rights and freedoms. But when armed groups arrived, it led to divisions in society, and everything collapsed.
This participant has heard the Islamist militia in Ras Al Ain wanted to stone women for adultery. She wants to know how civil society responded. But what can civil society do against guns? The aim here is to try to keep alive the spirit of the early days of the Syrian revolution. But perhaps that's just too idealistic. Many would say now that the conflict can only end either with a victory on the battlefield or with a settlement imposed by outside powers, and that activists like these are just irrelevant.
No, we are relevant. We are the Syrians. And this is Syria. It's all about Syria. It's our will, after all.
But no one's listening to you. You have no power. You have no leverage.
The fighting is going to stop. And
well, the fighting appears to be intensifying.
Yes, but any war ends eventually. And when it ends, then the real players are going to appear, the players who are able to act in the society and to lead the society. And they are not going to be necessarily the warlords.
Mohammed Shikhani, like others who reject both the regime and the armed rebels, has been intimidated by both sides. But he thinks only a third way will produce a country he can live in afterwards.
Everyone will be living in a ghetto or a small canton. We won't have a modern society now. We can't build a stable state on the basis of such a splitted society. So we are trying to preserve the society from collapsing.
The activists relaxing after the workshops in their Lebanese hideaway have seen death all around them. They may be idealists, but they're not naive. And they're thinking further ahead than the end of the war. They know a victory over a broken society is no victory at all. Workshops and democracy may seem a luxury now, but no one will think that afterwards.